Hey everybody, it's Joel from the Board Game Mechanics, bgmechanics.com. You can check out all of our stuff there. Enough about us. You're not here to hear about the Board Game Mechanics, but I do hope you check us out and subscribe. You're here to hear about Folklore, the Affliction. And before I give you thoughts on this game, I feel like we absolutely have to go look at some of the components, kind of get a feel for what happens in this game. Because I don't know, a lot of people are real familiar with this game. So why don't you come with me and we'll go to the table and we'll check out basically kind of an overview of this game.
So all of this on the table here, let's pan up here and take a look. All these miniatures, those boxes. This is all my Folklore stuff that I got from the Kickstarter. And this is a lot of game, okay? There's cards and tokens and miniatures and more. But all of that stuff is cool. It's cool and all. But this is the game right here. This story journal is the game. So basically there's a rule book, and the rule book's sitting on the table right now because that's where it should sit. You might want to look through it real quickly before you start playing, but this right here is going to give you a tutorial. Like, you're going to go through this tutorial, and it's going to tell you exactly what you need to look at in the rule book. So you start playing with this tutorial. Look, right there, it says rule book, game setup on page 5. Okay, I'll look on page 5 and look at the game setup, and I already did that. But then look, I'm going to read this text here. And oh man, we have our first skill check. How do I do a skill check? Look on page 12. Then you do a skill check here. And skill checks are, going to be familiar to anybody who's played a RPG game at all, a tabletop RPG. Well, if I can pass an 8 skill check, then I have A happen, a failure ends up with B. And then, if it's kind of a hard check, really. So they really want you to have this skirmish happen. And skirmishes and miniature combat are kind of at the heart of this game a little bit, and they're very different, and they're very cool. So I'm going to get to that now. But before that, let's see who the involved parties are in this. Well, you start off with a character. This is the Exorcist, right? And he's a cool character. On one side, we have his basic stats that he starts off with, and then we flip it over, and it's the ghost version of him, if we were to die. So one thing worth noting here real quick, look at these little arrows here. You take these cards, and you line them up. They're hit point trackers. Pretty cool, huh? Very simple way to do that. I think spin down counters might do a better job if you can find one that has enough sides on it, but there's the 2 arrows there to keep track of power points and to keep track of vitality, or Vita as they call it. Basically your hit points. Then there's a little reference here. Hey, look, there's your miniature. Here's my miniature. And that's when I do my miniatures combat. I also have the Witch Hunter out. So I'm kind of playing with like this holiness team because I don't know if you've listened to the podcast at all. You know I have kind of a weird hang up sometimes with like theme and stuff. So I'm picking the 2 guys who aren't dabbling with the dark arts any more than I have to have characters do that. And here's my one complaint on these miniatures. They're really good miniatures. I mean, you can take a look at that. That's a pretty good quality miniature. That's some. I really need a pedicure. Every time I do this, I think, man, I need a pedicure. But this sword, let's get back on the zooming here. Let's get that zooming life happening for this guy. Come on. Zoom on me. Well, there you go. That sword is really flimsy. It's like when it came in the box, it was like that. So it's working its way straight, but this is all very paintable, and it's perfectly great looking. Some decent detail there. So the miniatures are perfectly good. You also get a stack of cards there, and those cards are going to come into play as you set up your character initially. They're ability cards, item cards, companions, prayers, and rituals, which are kind of like one-time use spell things almost. They're kind of opposite ends of each other. I wouldn't say opposites, but like rituals aren't necessarily involved with like holy characters, where prayers are involved with more like holy characters, artifacts, and then tarots are like kind of like curses almost. So those cards are all really cool, and they all do different things. And they, look at this stack of items here. And look at this stack of abilities here. I mean, like, there's a lot of ways to customize your character through these cards. Pretty neat. Then over here, this is going to seem familiar to people. These road events and these off-road events kind of reminds me of, like, another game that I've played where it has, like, city events and then, like, traveling in the countryside events that happen. And it's kind of similar in a way that you're going to make decisions about how you want to interact with the countryside or how you want to interact with things as you're traveling. And then this board up here. So, again, let's just pan up here real quick. So, this board, look at all those miniatures too. The board, and then these are the boxes. This is the Dark Tales and the base game here, plus the miniatures pack. And I paid money for this to do this review, so this is going to be an honest review. So, at any rate, This board reminds me a lot of another game that I've played, where this game, you don't necessarily put stickers on this board, but it tracks where you're at in this world, and then there's like, you zoom in and things happen. So a big difference though with this game versus the other game that I am not mentioning right now, is that game has like a bunch of cardboard tiles, and it says, hey, follow this diagram, find these 15 things to put together in this way, and then set these cardboard standees into their standee stands and then stand them up. And then also there's other things you have to do too. Whereas this one says, hey, pick out playmat, that one. Okay, cool. And then put the dudes where they belong. Okay, cool. And then put your guys in the start spot. Look, they came in the door there. And then go have fun. That saved me a lot of time. It was a lot quicker than it is in the other game that, again, I'm not mentioning right now. So I would say that's a strength of this game, is that you're able to set up your miniatures fighting so quickly. And the other game that I'm thinking of doesn't quite set up that quickly. And so let's look at these miniatures again, like up here. We're going to pan back up. What? Gloomhaven? Gloomhaven? You're making this harder on me than it has to be. Okay? I've got to finish this review. All right? Maybe I'll play with you in a while, okay? But stop. Don't give me those eyes, okay? So anyway, back to this game. It sets up very quickly. But then the other piece, too, is that, you know, all the things you need to know about your enemies are on this sheet. One sheet. There's two sides. One side's I'm going to fight you real quickly, and it's called a skirmish. We don't even set up miniatures. It's all theater of the mind. It's all your stats versus my stats. Kind of like what you're used to in your D20 campaigns, probably. And then, well, hey, wait a minute. We need to have a more involved encounter. Boom. Look at this. Now we have things that are a little more planned out. We have a little bit like more involved kind of combat. Kind of cool. There's just a quick combat and then a miniatures combat that you can do with each of these NPC or mob characters or whatever. Another kind of cool thing too is you can always go out and just kind of grind for experience. So you can get like a bunch of coins. Grind meaning just go out and kill like pointless stuff, and then get coins and go back to town and power up your character before you're getting ready to evolve through this, go through the storybook. But again, that storybook is really, really, really where the core of this game happens at. This is 90% of the game. I mean, honestly, and it's fairly thick. I mean, there's a lot of stories in here. And there's some really neat stuff that happens in this game that, I mean, like, for example, sometimes you'll have to flip and read story moments in the back here, which reminds me a little bit of Tales of the Arabian Nights, where you're making choices. Tales of the Arabian Nights are like Near and Far. And this right here, I mean, this game probably has this packet here of games. I haven't played through the whole thing, but I'm guessing well over 100 hours of game there. And then beyond that, like I have up here, we see this Dark Tales expansion. Oh, Gloomhaven, seriously. Like this, you're making yourself more upset than you need to be right now. That Dark Tales expansion has a storybook in it as well. And the storybook for it is probably twice the thickness of that book. I mean, you can look at it here. It's very, very formidable. I mean, there's a lot in there as well. So I think you've got a good 200 hours worth of gameplay in these books. Plus, every setup you do is going to be really quick. There is a lot of dice in the combat. The combat isn't nearly as tactical as Gloomhaven. So Gloomhaven, I'm giving you some props on that. You're a much more tactical game. This one's much more of I just want to experience a story and feel like I'm interacting with a story and developing a character and playing pretend kind of game. So this is more of an RPG light game. So before I get really too far into my thoughts on this game, let's take a look at some more of the components here before we hang it up here. So these are the miniatures that you get with this game if you got the miniatures pack. So let's just zoom in on this guy. I mean, you can see they're pretty good quality. They came fully assembled. They feel good. They're definitely paint ready. I would say these are on par with most miniatures that I get, are just a good quality miniature. I just reviewed Western Legends. The miniatures in this game are far superior to those. The miniatures in that game are fine. They're just made to be, put on a table and played with. These, you could paint these guys up and they'd be a display piece. So really nice quality miniatures. The art on the game is really good. All these different items and stuff that you can get have really neat art. Just and then you have your companions that you can get. A vagabond comes along with you, stickman, just all these different things come along with you. A priest, soldier, there's good art in this game, and it's just I feel like you could probably play this game, get this game out, play it, enjoy it, put it away, in about half the time it takes you to get out Gloomhaven and play the same amount of game. Now, is it going to be as rich of thematic gameplay as the Gloomhaven game was going to be? Probably not. I'm getting ahead of myself here. Let's go back to what I'm calling the studio, but really is my desk chair, and talk about what my thoughts are on this game.
So that's an overview. Like, I'm going to call it an overview or a snapshot of what happens in this game. Because I don't really even go into rules about skirmishing or anything like that. I just kind of give you some of the big major concepts in this game. There are definitely some rules explanations out there and gameplay videos out there if you want to find those. And they're pretty good resources. But I just wanted us all to have kind of a background and framework for what I'm about to say, which is probably going to make some people maybe not unhappy. I'm not going to make people unhappy because I don't want to insult Gloomhaven. Gloomhaven is an amazing game. I own a copy of Gloomhaven. You saw it on the table. Gloomhaven's a very good game. And it makes me happy to play Gloomhaven. But sorry, Gloomhaven Ghost. You're not dead, Gloomhaven. I think I'm going to hang on to Gloomhaven. There's a big but here, though. Gloomhaven, when I play Gloomhaven, here's how it goes. I feel like playing Gloomhaven. I go find the Gloomhaven box, plus the other accordion file that I have, plus the other Plano box that I have, and get everything together, okay? Then I try and remember where was I at in the campaign and stuff when I last stopped. Where was I at? I was in this spot and I could set up this scenario. Okay, cool. So now I'm going to set the scenario. So now I've got to find these tiles and place them on the board and put them in the right order. And okay, now I need to figure out, okay, I'm playing with 2 players, so I need to use this color coordination to put this many miniatures out, and not miniatures, even their standees. And then I also need to remember which characters was I playing with. Oh yeah, these characters. How are the decks set up? Okay, let's hope that I didn't mix the decks up for my abilities and stuff. Okay, good, those look good. Get my cards all sorted out for the characters. We got to get ready for fighting these guys. So we got to get their little 4x4 cards out. And then we've got to figure out, okay, what's their setting again here? Oh yeah, they're not elites, they're just normal. And now I also have to, beyond that, get their deck of cards ready. And then I have to have their modifier deck there as well. So I've got a lot of setup that's going on there. And all that stuff makes for a cool depth of combat and fun in that combat system. And the fact that you're so customized in how you're going to encounter things and have that combat is really cool. The randomness that's been minimized, there's just that deck that kind of gives you modifiers, double damage, kind of whatever things, is cool too. So if you don't like die rolling and you want something where it's you can use math and percentages and probabilities and you can plan out your turns better and just a truly heavier game and more tactical game, maybe not heavier is true, and a more tactical game, then Gloomhaven's it, and it's worth all that for you. It's absolutely worth all that for you. This game, however, is this. I want to play Folklore. Okay, so what do? Okay, here are the 2 characters I had. Let's grab the sheets that were there. Let's grab maybe the little bag that has a couple little cards in there, and then my little portfolio. Okay, cool. We're ready to go on that. What do we want to do? What story do we want to do? Well, we were at the church. Let's go here. Let's grind out some of these things and do some skirmishes and get some more money. Okay, cool. So that's easy. Just do these encounter cards. Cool. And then basically roll a die and figure out how tough this enemy is, and then fight him using die. And that's a really quick way to do it. And then it's hey, let's get into the story and let's do some real miniatures kind of stuff. Okay, so instead of having to sort through my tiles, find the right tiles, combination of tiles, which it does take time. Anybody who's played Gloomhaven knows that. And you can make it quicker, but you're spending 10 minutes finding tiles, setting them up, putting mobs out, getting decks of cards for mobs, stuff like that, at least 10 minutes. And I would love to see somebody who has any kind of complex scenario make a rebuttal to that, where they're able to set up the game from in the box to on the table in less than 10 minutes. I just don't think you can. This game, though, you can. Toss that piece of playmat down, put the miniatures on there, grab their little cards, roll the die to see how tough they are. If it's a skirmish or if it's the miniatures combat, look at the card, look it over a little bit, and then go from there. And there's no deck of cards for them to have to figure out. There's no deck of cards you have to figure out. It's all done on your little item cards, and then it's also done with die. And so some people hate die. And I get that because die can mess you up pretty bad. There's that whole dice hate me thing, you know? And I know some people do have bad luck. I can't explain it. It's not scientific, but some people hate dice. So this game's not for you. But if you don't mind dice and you like that die chucking RPG experience, this game, you pop it out, you put it on the table, it's ready to go. You're doing this much more simple and streamlined thing. But then also like a lot of the like gratifying experience that you have from playing Gloomhaven of making a character more powerful and moving through a story progression, like that is present in this game. And it happens in just such a quicker package. So I think for me in this season of my life, this is my go-to adventuring kind of fun game like this. So I feel like this game, I don't know what the timeline for the development of this game and Gloomhaven was, but there are definitely elements of this that cross over. Just the cards replace the dice and vice versa on a lot of it. The thing that Gloomhaven does that this game does not do is it has that cool experience of opening new boxes and opening new things and discovering. This doesn't have near as much of a feeling of discovery as you get in Gloomhaven, for sure. But as far as if you just want a quick, like light RPG experience where you're experiencing a story and you're doing some combat, this is the one to have. So this is the RPG light game that's a story-driven, having a lot of fun playing through a story, an interactive story. But it's not tactical. If you want a tactical game that has story elements in it, then Gloomhaven's your game. So am I going to get rid of my copy of Gloomhaven? It's possible. I just feel like if I did get rid of my copy of Gloomhaven, I would miss it. I would feel like part of me was like, man, that really was a good game. And I would miss that I never had a chance to play through it and really enjoy the entirety of the game. And I wish that my situation in life was better where I have set up Gloomhaven for a month at a time. I've had it set up in a spare room on a table, ready to play, and I just didn't have the people there ready to play with me. And then even when we are playing, it had been long enough that I was like, okay, I got to remember where we were at with this and how things were set up and where we were at with, different stuff. Kind of have that with any legacy game, but I definitely felt that with Gloomhaven. So I really hope that maybe in my retirement, I don't know, I'll be in the old folks home with my copy of Gloomhaven, playing it every day with people, really experiencing it. But I feel like if you can get the experience of having Gloomhaven in your life and play it in a way that's effective for you, I'm jealous of you. I'm not able to do that right now. And Folklore is the closest thing I think I probably can get. So that's why Folklore is in my collection and it's not going anywhere. And I don't think Gloomhaven is either. But I don't know that most people are going to want to own both these games because they're both kind of expensive and they're both kind of big, take up a lot of real estate in your storage. So which one's for you? If you want a tactical game that's card-driven and a legacy experience, get Gloomhaven. If you want an RPG light experience that doesn't have a DM, that you can play in a DM-less package, something like maybe the next steps for something like Descent, then I would say look at Folklore the Affliction. Because Folklore does feel more like you're playing a D20 campaign with a storybook guiding you. And then Gloomhaven does feel more like you're playing a tactical game that has some story elements in it. So I don't feel like these games are going to fire each other or really be in super competition with each other. For a lot of people, for me, they are. And I think right now I'm sticking my flag into the Folklore soil and saying this is what I'm claiming for me is my game that I'm going to use for fantasy adventuring right now. And again, I hope this doesn't come across as I'm hating on Gloomhaven because it's an awesome game, a super good game. And I think some of the criticisms I make of it are just inherent with this game, with Gloomhaven. It's going to take a lot of setup and teardown to build something as cool and complex as Gloomhaven is. And I don't know how you could streamline that without implementing it as a computer game or something almost. So this one does streamlined, and you lose a lot of the complexity because of it, but it's very streamlined and more likely to hit the table for me in this part of my life. So how about those wrenches? Where am I putting this game at? Wrench-wise. Well, at this point, I'm going to say that this game gets the board game mechanics accepted on my end. I'm not so sure that Jason, the other host on Board Game Mechanics, would accept this one because it's very, very much Ameritrash, however you want to say it. But I'm giving it 4.5 out of 5 wrenches. I really do think it's just a great game, rock solid game, and enjoyed a ton. And so that's that. I hope that no one took offense to me comparing this to Gloomhaven. I think these games are going to be compared, though, because they have the similar ideas of fighting bad guys and going through an adventure. But they're very different at the same time. So one's a very tactical game. The other one's very much a story game. So that said, Folklore the Affliction is the one that I'm going to be hanging on to in my collection for now. I think I'll be hanging on to Gloomhaven as well. But if I had to get rid of one, I think I'd probably be more apt at this season of my life get rid of Gloomhaven just because of the extra teardown and setup kind of time on that. So anyway, Folklore the Affliction, 4.5 out of 5 wrenches. Thanks for watching. I appreciate that you've spent some time with us, and I hope that you connect with us in some way over on Facebook or on Twitter or somewhere, and get involved with our podcast or other things that we do. Our fans are the best in the world, including you watching this. I think that's an understatement. You guys are just amazing people that are really fun to talk to and really funny, and I'm always just impressed by the world of board gamers. So anyway, this has been Joel, and keep gaming.